My name is Rebekah. I'm here with the Homeschool Connection here in Winter Haven, Florida, and I'm doing our usual blog, The Brew, and today we're going to be talking about some community service hours and what you need, how you need them, and different things. So again, I'm with the Homeschool Connection with The Brew, and The Brew is a mixture of people, events, and places that come together to form a more potent whole, and we're here hoping that we can help your whole family in any way we can be more potent, better in whatever ways we can. So of course I got my brew here, and let's take a minute over our coffee and talk a little bit about community service hours. First I gotta take a sip. Okay, so here is the deal with community service hours. All right, they are not required to graduate in the state of Florida, but they are required for Bright Future Scholarship. And there are 3 different levels that specifically qualify for Bright Futures. So you can get what's called a gold seal, vocational gold seal, and you need 30 community service hours. If you do 75, you can get a Florida Medallion Scholarship. And if you have 100, you can get what's called the Florida Academic Scholarship. So there are 3 different levels. I usually suggest, just as a general rule, that you shoot for 100 community service hours. Now, because you can add them on your transcript. And your transcript is kind of like your academic resume. When you're applying to college or different places, it looks awesome to be able to say you did so many hours of community service. So the more community service you have, the better you look to colleges. And even if you're not going to college and you're just planning on getting a job, that looks really, really great on your job application. I mean, can you imagine? I know that public specifically in our area looks at that for different things when they're hiring people. So always, community service hours count. There's usually a place on your on a job application where you can put that in, and it's kind of a way to make yourself look a little better. So another really cool thing, well, I don't know about cool, but interesting thing about, according to Florida law, if you have 75 hours of community service, 75 hours of community service counts as a half credit of elective. And you can do up to 150 hours of community service to count as a high school credit. So, say that again real fast. 150 hours of community service counts as 1 high school credit. All right, now when you count it as a high school credit, you can't say that you did it as community service then, because then it's kind of like taking a class. All right, so you count your 150 towards your credit, and then anything extra would be towards your scholarship hours. Okay, makes sense? So let's say you did 200 hours of community service and you counted 150 of them as a high school credit, then you only have 50 community service hours that are rolling over to your Bright Future Scholarship. All right, does that make sense? Everybody kind of with me on that one? So it can get sticky there. So you can use it for high school credit if you want to, or you can use it towards your Bright Futures, but it doesn't apply to both of them. You can only count it for one or the other. Another thing is, and this is really interesting because I did some research and started and took the time to actually read all the Florida standards on community service hours and kind of how they apply to Bright Futures, although I do think the Bright Futures is a total different talk. Maybe we'll take some time, we'll add that to one of our posts coming up here in the fall on what Bright Futures is and what the different levels are and how to apply for all that, because that seems to be its own little jungle out there. Bright Futures is its own little thing. But I have a paper here and I was going to read it specifically. Things that do not count as community service hours. Okay, what can't be counted? Okay, anything that is court mandated. Okay, that makes sense. Those don't count as community service. Anything which a student can benefit materially or financially. So if you take money for it, it doesn't count. Duty within the family, parents, siblings, any of their grandchildren, any of their spouses, aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces. If you do something for your family, it is not considered it is not considered community service hours, okay? That's called family hours. My mom, when we were growing up, my mom would call it duty. This would be your duty, not community service. This is your family duty. And I'm the oldest of 5, so I got roped into a lot of family duties. Number 4, activity. Now here's the one where it gets sticky because some people do count it. So you can count it, especially, since most of us homeschool are faith-based. Not all, but most are faith-based homeschoolers. An activity that can be interpreted primarily as religious devotion. All right, so I've had people in the past want to count nursery time as community service, and I guess that could, even though you could also count that as just your service to the Lord, as your religious service. Children's church, that wouldn't necessarily count as community service hours. It could count as religious devotion. So just remember, I don't know, camps. Going out to camp, that's kind of an iffy slope. Is that considered community service? Or are you going to consider that religious devotion? So we just need to make sure we keep our church service, can't always be counted as community service hours. They're a little bit different. According to the law specifically says any activity that can be interpreted primarily as proselytizing or religious devotion. So you can take that, however you will. You just don't want, maybe, I guess the whole point would be maybe making sure you have a variety. If you're going to count some of them that you do for your church, maybe you could count some that you do for something else too. Maybe not count all 250 hours for your church, because I don't know, it's easy to get that. And the max you can count, even if you do a camp, is 40 hours. The max you can count in a week is 40 hours. So I know when we go out to camp for our church, the kids would get that. They would put, they put in way more than 40 hours. They put in like 100 hours at camp. You're out there all day long. I mean, you can easily put more than 40 hours a week in Vacation Bible School, but the max you can do for an event is 40 hours. So do that. It said whoops. I don't know how this happens sometimes, but there you have to see the back of the office. It's not as pretty as the front though. This is the way I face when I sit for my desk, because I like to be able to see the window. I think it makes me happy. An activity, there is no leader or responsible adult on site. We usually would have something that said donations are not considered community service hours, such as locks of love or giving blood. So that was kind of interesting. I didn't know that. Except for credit earned through service learning courses, students may not receive academic credit for service work performed. An activity performed by a student prior to becoming a high school student or after graduation, so it actually has to be while they are 9th grade through 12th grade, and participating on a team sport or performance of any kind. This camera. Okay, I don't know why it does that. It just does. I guess it just wants you to see the other side of the room. So those are kind of the things you're not supposed to count as community service. But I feel like you can get you could get creative with some of them. I mean, I don't think, here's the deal. I've never heard of anybody really, really, really hardcore checking up on community service hours. So if you're putting them down when you're applying for Bright Futures, generally, they're just going to count the hours, because most kids who are doing community service hours have done way more than they put down, have volunteered way more than they have. So I wouldn't necessarily be afraid when you're counting community service hours for things. If you in good conscience feel like you as the parent feel like your child is giving of their time and giving extra and want to count it as community service, by all means, go right ahead. That's really up to you. Make sure on our blog today there is a form. So make sure that you fill them out as you do them and have whoever is in charge of that activity to sign off on those community service hours. So here at the Homeschool Connection, we have a Key Club, which is a specific club for high schoolers to do community service projects. And we do some faith-based community service. We go to the mission here in town and do lunch for the homeless. They did trick or treat so others could eat, and went and collected canned goods. They collected stuff for the police, for the sheriff's office. They got bags together for the sheriff's wives and kids. Those things are all community service projects. So, you know, there's on the blog today, there's a couple articles that have every single thing under the sun. Great ideas for community service. You know, I always encourage my kids to get 100 hours. If they're graduating, the goal would be 100 hours of community service, just because, you know, it's great to do something for somebody else. We're helping others by doing anything. Any of that always is great for them to be able to help. So go out in the community and do something. So on Thursday, if anybody has specific questions, I was going to go over, make sure we have a list of, I know there are on the blog, of potential community service projects. If anybody has some great ideas for community service projects, please let us know. Pass it on. There are always great things. No matter what your interest is, there's always something that the kids can volunteer with and volunteer in. So you know, that's always a big part, I think, an important part of your schooling. So if you have any questions about community service hours on Thursday, I will kind of go over the rules again, read through them a little more specifically on the standards, maybe talk a little bit about the Bright Futures requirements and how you put in your community service hours for Bright Futures. And I will get some of those links up for you, the Bright Futures links. Let me know if you have specific questions on that, and we will go over them on Thursday. So meanwhile, check out our blog where this video will be posted, along with some great information on, along with our form for community service projects and some other information on it. So follow us. It's www.thehomeschoolconnection.net. And if you can, share our videos. If you enjoy them, like them, share them. We're trying to get to 5,000 followers, and we'd love for you and your friends to be a part of that. So I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see y'all on Thursday.